Meet Matt Fabri, founder of OpSys Australia. He's the industry insider known for calling bullshit. The larrikin who believes cybersecurity should be fun, but its failures are no joke. He's not here to sell you fear. He's here to dismantle it, exposing the glitter-covered lies to protect the businesses that need it most.
It's holy, everything's gone, or my business is dead, or hey, they want $1 million out of me.
This isn't just about lost data anymore. It's about total annihilation. He takes us past the technical jargon and into the raw, panicked moments of a business owner's worst nightmare, revealing the true emotional and financial devastation of a modern cyber attack.
There's a pile of with a bit of glitter on it so somebody can sell a license.
This is his mission, and it's not about popularity, it's about integrity. He explains why he's willing to be the polarizing figure, because for him, protecting the backbone of the nation's economy is a responsibility he refuses to compromise on.
I'm not here to make friends, I'm here to make Australia a safer and more secure place to do business.
Welcome back, cyber survivors, to another episode of Dumb Ways to Get Hacked. Our next guest spends his days wrestling digital demons and protecting Australia's actual secrets. But get this, he reckons the whole caper should be fun. He's Matt Fabri, the founder of OpSys Australia, beaming in from the very cool ex-courthouse in Adelaide that I hear is kitted out like a spy movie set. With nearly 2 decades in the cyber trenches, Matt, great to have you on our show.
Hey, Bora, how are you?
Good, thanks. Is saving the world one firewall at a time really as fun as you make it sound out to me?
Jesus. Bloody hell, yeah. I really had to put it in straight away, first sentence, isn't it? Oh, look. It is one of those ones where I think if you don't enjoy it, you don't have a bit of fun and sort of enjoy the landscape, it's not really a role for you. You see in IT, you always see people at their worst or when they have a problem, I suppose. Cyber is a whole different thing. We see it when we thought it was at its worst back, let's say 15 years ago. Yeah, it was like a really bad day. The server had gone down or something like that. These days, it's holy crap, everything's gone, or my business is dead, or hey, they want $1 million out of me. So it is a very, very big change in a small amount of time.
The landscape has definitely changed, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess, can you take us back? You founded OpSys in 2016. What was that moment or serious observation that made you say, right, I need to build this? There's a critical gap here in Australia.
Look, I think when I started OpSys, there wasn't a real enterprise grade type level cybersecurity tool set, let's say, for detect and response out on the market that small businesses, mum and dad at home, could really get their hands on. And that was really our mission, was to let's see what we could do, how we could bring the real capability down to the smaller businesses. In Australia, I think 99% or something like that of businesses are small businesses. So it was a place where, let's just say 99% of businesses couldn't afford the real products or the real capability sets. So we teamed up with FireEye. We were the global first MSSP for the FireEye Helix platform. And we work with FireEye globally to really bring a product to market, which, to be honest, to this day, I still think it was a fantastic product. Needed a little bit more refinement, but wow, it was very, very solid.
So for those who don't know what MSSP is, I mean, people struggle to know what an MSP is these days, managed service provider. Yeah. What is an MSSP and what makes it different to your other IT support environments?
Oh, look, all it is just adds the security into the title, really. That's all. But from an MSSP, it's a lot more specialized. It's born from a cyber security capability set. You know how to drive the tools. You've been through cyber issues before. You've dealt with, major issues. You know how to, what I like to put it back to is not many of us could jump into a jumbo jet, fly the thing, or not many of us could be a doctor and say, hey, this is what the problem is and this is how we resolve it. That extra S in the MSP sort of thing, so to make it the MSSP, is and should be that you are aware of how to use the tools, how to define them, how to run them, and how to make sure that, your clients are secure from any sort of framework. So understanding it, delivering it, and making sure that they're safe. Like I think on LinkedIn, I put probably a couple months ago now, was you don't jump on Google and type in, oh, what's wrong with me? Because the minute you type in what it is, more than likely, Google's going to turn back and say, oh, you've got cancer, or you've got this and you're going to die, or, hey, you've got a day to live. And it's the same in the cyber world, that you type things in. These days, you've got so many IT companies now getting into cyber that it's all doom and gloom, and it's not really the case. You need more of a managed approach. And the real MSSPs that are out there in the market at the moment, if you look at a lot of their social activity and these leaders of industry, we're all saying the same thing. It's a risk-based approach. It's making sure that you're able to keep that business running.
So following on from that, you're dealing with businesses of all sizes, and a common theme, especially for SMEs, is seeing cybersecurity as an IT problem rather than a fundamental business risk. And so how do you even begin to shift that mindset? What's your approach to helping them to see the bigger picture, that this isn't just about tech, but it's actually about their survival?
Oh, look, it is an interesting one. I suppose there's so many different ways to look at it. If you look at it from the perspective of why is it seen as an IT problem, look, brass tacks is, majority of it is because you have your IT MSPs that are now moving into cyber. So their main contacts are the IT managers, et cetera, and from that perspective, they're pushing a sale through their IT setup, right? We're stock standard. From a business perspective, that's where these talks are starting from, is from an IT management layer. Where it should be is at a board-based level. It should be about risk. It should be around a framework as to, okay, we understand the risk of this. Are we happy to sign off on this risk, or do we need to do something about it? And the core thing really at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, is, does that risk-based discussion happen in IT, or does it really happen at a board? And the IT manager doesn't get paid enough to sit there and make a decision for the entire business, let's be honest. And those, any sort of good cyber culture, any sort of awareness program or anything else needs to be led from the top down. If you look at any leadership framework, any leadership books or anything like that, it's always follow the leader, and the leader needs to be out the front, gunning the troops and making sure that they're all stepping in the right direction and doing the right thing.
Yeah, I agree. As they say, mate, the fish rots from the head.
Exactly
right. So, being in your scenario, the best thing we could ever do, I guess, is to give enough information so that that board member can make an informed decision. It's not our job to make decisions. It's our job to give them the information to make those decisions, I think. So that's very well said. Absolutely. You've seen a lot in your years in cybersecurity. You must have some wild stories from meetings. What moment did you have a meeting with a client or a vendor where you thought, what did they just say, and double take, or, take a second to figure out how to actually reply to that?
Look, probably the words that you want to use in this is probably not meant to be on the podcast like this, I suppose. You have a lot of those. Look, I suppose in the industry, I'm sort of known for calling bullshit out. I just don't like seeing that sort of stuff out in industry. All it takes is for one person to say something stupid or say something that's not correct, and one person takes that as gospel, does that or implements it inside their organization, they get breached, and then that person that said it or thinks that they're an expert or whatever else just says, oh, well, cyber breaches happen, what can you do? I mean, from a vendor perspective, you always have to go into vendor discussions with, thinking. You always have to be thinking, okay, what are they trying to sell? What are they trying to push? But the main and the absolute core is, what does their product do? Does it actually do what it says, or is this another bit of, marketing glitz and glamour? And, let's just, say it as it is. Is it a pile of shit with a bit of glitter on it so somebody can sell a license? There are a lot of good vendors out there these days. A lot of the technology sets have now moved. A lot of companies have been licensing, for instance, licensing their engines or their databases to other endpoint capability sets. I think that, the main thing is, and what I keep saying to everybody, is just read through the marketing, understand what are they trying to do. Does it actually do what it says on the box? And there's pretty quick and easy ways of ascertaining that. Just run a bit of a test yourself and make sure that you pull down some things and fire them off or detonate them on a PC and make sure that what they actually say or what the capabilities are work. Into actual discussions that we have, look, we have a lot of people trying to sell us things all the time, but we stick to our cause. The reason is we have a lot of capability built in and on top of our vendors. Our vendors are chosen and be strictly chosen. So we actually work with them. We get their technology sets. If you have a look, majority of our vendors have written white papers around our OpSys, have worked with them and made adjustments to their product to make it work a little bit differently, or I suppose into the frameworks that we use internally to protect our clients. But yeah, it's, as I said, it's a $1 trillion or $3 trillion industry, what they're saying, by 2028. So you do have a lot of companies starting up. You have a lot of people that don't really know what they're doing, grabbing that VC cash in Silicon Valley and around the world. And why wouldn't you? If you could give it a go, or I suppose you had the audacity to get it done. But there is a lot of cool stuff coming out in market as well. I mean, you have the old Israeli squadron. They're all coming out with amazing products. I mean, if you have a look in the cyber world at the moment, a lot of really cool tech that's coming out is Israeli based. And that's because they are trained so amazingly through their defense frameworks and defense network that when they come out, these guys are in the upper echelon. You're talking like the couple % of amazing cyber technology brains. And some of the tech that they're coming out with now is second to none. It's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess in Australia, our government's trying to be proactive on this as well. They've brought out what they call the Essentials 8 framework, but I think there's a lot of confusion around that from a business perspective. Is, well, have they even heard of it? If they've heard of it, what does it mean? How does it impact me? Keeping it as simple as possible, what are your thoughts, and what should a business know and understand about the Essentials 8?
Look, the Essential 8 is a starting platform, right? What happened was the governments came out and said, oh, well, we need to get something out. We need to make sure that everybody has something that they should be doing, or a guideline, let's call it, to cut through the noise of industry. And I think that was fantastic. They did a really good job of it. They've stepped up into the maturity levels now. They've got those processes coming through. But the main thing everybody forgets, it is a starting point, right? And my sales guy, Sush, inside the business, always has a crack at me every time he's talking about it, or, at presentations. So for instance, this afternoon, I'm presenting to a whole bunch of people. I think next week we've got defense in the office as well. And I know he'll have another crack at me then as well. But the way that I always explain the Essential 8, it's like going to war with a Jatz biscuit, right? As a shield, right? Yeah, fantastic. What's it actually going to stop? The Essential 8 stops around about, let's say 70-75% of breaches happening inside your business, depending on your maturity level, okay? But the biggest thing the Essential 8 misses is, well, okay, we still have 30%, 20% risk that something will get past. And if it does get past, it is going to be actually quite devastating through. Well, where's the detect and the response? And that's where we go back to my Jatz biscuit statement. Well, okay, so let's just say that you use that as a defensive shield, or that disappears, or whatever else, okay? Well, so the enemy has gotten through all your defenses. Now what? So where's the alerting scheduling? Where's the detect? Where's the response capability? Where's the isolation of being able to shut that computer off or stop it from being able to communicate in or out or into the network? Where's the collation of all the logs and all this sort of stuff? Like, you're talking about a pretty big gap, let's just say. My talks inside, everybody's sort of saying, well, we don't really need to put it into the Essential 8 because a lot of companies are now getting that detect and response via our, for instance, our managed cyber capability, via CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, our major competitors. But at the end of the day, I think that small business doesn't go off the fact of, oh, hey, I just thought of this and I thought this would be a fantastic thing to put in, but the government is telling me about this Essential 8 and that's what I need to do. And I suppose that was where over the last fortnight I've had an interesting discussion with one of our customers. They came in and they were asking OpSys about our Essential 8 maturity level. And when I sort of said, hey, look, this is this is what we do, this is what we do it, this is our maturity levels, this is why we're around this, here's our ISO certifications. The client sort of looked at me disgusted and was like, oh, well, you're not really much better, etc. And I was like, well, hang on, we are very locked down, we are very things, but there's a lot of things that sometimes are very, very difficult to implement. I mean, if you go and look at the federal government, the Essential 8 was out for quite some time, and I think only maybe 2 were actually Essential 8 compliant at that stage. And, we're talking years, not months. But from our perspective is, we have a lot of the Essential 8. I think we actually have all of it deployed in various maturity levels. But we have a detect and response capability. We have other lockdown capabilities. We have, a very, very strict MFA capability. We're ISO 27001 compliant. So we have so many other frameworks that are actually better and provide us a hell of a lot more capability than the Essential 8. And it's just that I think the messaging needs to change. That if you go and talk to somebody in the actual cyber industry and has been around for some time, they're all going to tell you the Essential 8 is a starting point. It's somewhere to build up and provide a capability and build a maturity level. That's why it's called a maturity level, right? It's a starting point, and you go 1 and 2 and 3 and keep building. It's not an end point. It's not a, we are cyber secure now and we will be until we sell the company or until God chooses that it's my day to go. And that's not the case whatsoever.
I think we will definitely have a bigger discussion on that on one of our next podcasts. But I think the simplest way I put it, and I agree with you, is that I dumb it down to say, think of my house as my business. Now, do I leave my front door open for anyone to walk in? In a lot of cases, you'd be surprised if businesses is pretty much what they're like. But then I've got my normal door, and then I might put a security door. Then I might put a camera, and that's how I reference the maturity levels. And as you said, that's the defense. What is inside my business? Do I have a gentleman standing at the door, inside the door, letting people in based on checklists? Is that person also detecting that guest shouldn't be in this room, picking that person up and saying, no, go here or get out of my house? That's how I reference it, to keep it as simple as possible. And you're spot on. That's the starting point of how do I lock my place down, not what happens from beyond that point. And so what are some non-negotiables, simple things that you think a business could take to actually be more resilient in the event that they do get attacked? Because the big thing here, as you know, it's not if you get attacked, it's when you get attacked. Yeah. And how do you as a business, no matter what, whether you're one-man band or 300 or you're the defense, how do you, what are the simple steps people can take so their businesses do survive?
Yeah, look, what you're saying in regards to that is 100% correct, okay? So, like, for instance, in your house, you put your alarm system in because you want them to be detected. You want to know that someone's actually gotten through your defenses and is in your house. That's why the alarm goes off. The alarm goes off to scare them off or, alert you that, hey, someone's in the place. It's the same inside your business. Like, you want to know that someone's inside your network looking at files or on your laptop. But I suppose getting back to your question, it's about risk, okay? It's understanding risk to the organization. What's the old saying is cash is king, okay? So getting money, sending money. So getting money in from your customers and being able to pay your employees, pay your suppliers, and pay the ATO. Now, if you can do those things continually, hey, that's a pretty good starting point. From there, you really want to be able to make sure from a risk perspective is where is everything? So if you're cloud-based Okay, so for instance, you have Xero or you have MyOb Cloud or you have your accounting in the cloud. Well, okay, there's not much you can do in regards to that platform. So you can't really sit there and run an automated backup on it. You can't control it, right? You're working, it's cybersecurity by collaboration. So you're working with that cloud-based vendor to make sure that your account's secure, they're secure, happy days. From there, it becomes okay, well, where are the rest of our operations? Is it cloud-based or is it internal-based? So if it's internal-based and you have systems and applications and software, etc., well, that's where you want to be able to sit there and go, okay, what level of this do I need to make sure to keep my business running tomorrow? If you go and talk to a lot of the new people getting into cyber or MSPs getting into cyber, it's back up everything and everything's an issue. And even that tiniest little file over there or this and that is an issue, blah, blah, blah. And it's not that. In a time of breach, you're not going to be worried about that little file over there that who even remembers that it's there, for instance. At a time of breach, you have to remember that there's a major psychology point, okay? And the major psychology point that you have to think about is in a time of breach, people panic. And in panic stations, things go wrong. So making sure you have a plan, making sure that you're able to understand who it's to contact, why to contact, what systems are where the main control sets are for the business, and making sure that the business can continue running. If you can do those resiliency points to a fair degree, you're going to come out of it okay. Now, am I saying that that's going to be every single case? No, because there's going to be some pretty advanced attackers that are going to understand what your controls are. They're going to be inside your network for a while. They're going to understand who does what, why they do, and use that against you. The main thing that you have to understand is if you can continue to pay people, you're going to have your staff continue to work for you. If you can continue the business running, you're going to be in a good stead. The ATO are becoming a lot more aware of cyber breaches and loss of data these days, as they weren't as, let's call it, understanding previously, but it doesn't mean that you don't back things up. As long as you've got a backup, as long as you can bring things up. But I'm not saying, like a lot of places we walk into these days, is it's on a USB hard drive or something like that. Send it to the cloud where it's out of reach. It's gone. I know that we met through Acronis, and going through a vendor where they can actually turn around and say to you that, hey, this backup cannot be touched. It doesn't matter. It's there and it's there for good. It's immutable. It cannot be touched. That's a pretty cool starting point. If you can get your data back, go from there. But your question could be, I could go on it for days, right? But the main parts are, as long as the business can continue to run, you can still invoice, you can still receive funds, and you can keep operations going. Generally, you will survive. It's the ones that don't do anything, where everything's locked down and they will run their business from a spreadsheet that they forgot about or didn't do, and they haven't got a copy of it, and then bang, that's when the problems all really occur.
Yeah, love that. That's 100% true. And I don't think, unless you deal with all the different vendors like we do, you don't realize how much still a spreadsheet is predominantly running so many businesses. It's insane. Excel is like the number one program out there. I don't care what anyone says, how good you are. If you can, until the day someone can take over Excel, mate, you've done very well.
Yeah, exactly right. And this is what everybody forgets. It's, and that's why I say it's that risk-based approach. It's about understanding. And look, I hate saying it, but it is the thing to say. It's where are the crown jewels? What keeps the business running? And if you can understand what keeps the business running and you can protect what it is, you might be well good. And don't forget, that's not just an Excel spreadsheet either. That's people. It's process and it's procedural. It's how does this happen? Because sometimes it's a cyber-based issue. Sometimes it may be a cyber-ish type issue as well. And when I say cyber-ish, it might be the fact that, an emails came in from Jan in accounts, and Jan's asking John hey, John, we're where is this work that you were meant to do for me? And John sends the information back to who he thinks was Jan, but it's not actually Jan, it's the attacker, right? And at the end of the day, you sort of sit there and go, well, if the process was in place of checking things and double checking things, that the breach may not have occurred. Or, for instance, it's just a quick stop of, hey, Jan, on the phone, hey, Jan, why did you send me that request, or, a request for a bank change or whatnot? And that's the one that probably leads us into a really cool, another topic of conversation is we've gone so tech-based now. And I know, Bora, I'm sure your parents and grandparents and everybody sort of said, I don't know about this bloody computer stuff. And, my nana and my parents and everybody sort of still says it to me now, and that's why I keep saying to everybody that gone are the days of this face-to-face, like, handshake agreements and, hey, Matt, I need you to change my bank account, and the customer would be there in person, or it'd be a fax or something. You know what I mean? It's that real humanable, if that's even a word, right? But it's that human touch that leaves us open for attack, is because we become so lazy as a society. We just take things on merit that, hey, that person has emailed me and that is what they want. And we've become so attuned to being, whatever, what we see is correct. And we just need those double checks. Pick up the phone, talk to people. Like, believe it or not, you don't need to be sitting at home on your own, all alone, or in your office with the door shut, not being a social person checking out Facebook. Pick up the phone, go, hey, did you actually really need this done? And it will stop a lot of the things going wrong.
This week, we've released a whole series of simple to follow videos on dumb ways to get hacked, on hacks, people being compromised. And I guess the key message is, as you said, staff are your number one firewall. It's not a good idea to say, this person is my weakest link. They're only a weak link because you haven't trained them. Right. And the simple things, like every boffin in Microsoft have pushed this message. I can't explain how many times. Google and even meetings we've seen, enable 2FA, mate. It's not very complicated. It's free. It doesn't cost you any money. It only costs you inconvenience, according to various people, as you know.
Yeah.
And according to Microsoft, they say that would stop 99% of simple hacks that happen against businesses. And as you said, people have that mentality, hey, I'm in the cloud, I'm good now. Like, Microsoft has got me covered. And they don't have 2FA, someone gets the email password, or they've been compromised by another way and they use it, and they go delete all their Microsoft. Microsoft says, well, buddy, you deleted it. We can see the records. What do you want us to do about it? We don't back it up. That's up to you to take. And I guess that from a business MSP perspective, that's the risk part that you're talking about. Hey, look, all I'm saying is, if this is important to you and you don't back it up and you lose it, are you going to cry? Which is, a particular person I know who does a lot. Will you cry if you lose this file? Yes. You want to back it up? No? Whatever. That's cool. No stress.
Exactly right. And there's so many ways to implement that MFA and actually make it harder as well. You've got so many different levels. I mean, for here in OpSys, we use proper hardware tokens, right? Yep. Any access to anything of high relevance or high capability set, we have to use tokens, to the point that we're actually looking at now implementing tokens into high priority assets. So for instance, myself, when I travel overseas, I actually take a burner phone with me. That burner phone is what I use. Every country I go in and out of, it gets completely wiped and starts again. In case. It's all precautionary, but once again, risk profile, we do work with defence. I like to make sure that, being South Australian, I don't want to be on the front page of the Sunday Mail, over there, what is it, the Herald Sun or whatever else for you, but that's the core point. It's, once again, it all goes back to risk. So are you going to be hit by a sophisticated actor? Yes or no? More than likely not. It's going to be a pretty commodity based. Having a Microsoft MFA implemented is going to block a lot of this stuff out. If you go and listen to a lot of the MSP competitors that are out there now, it's around the framework, your token can be stolen and this can happen and that can happen, and this MFA isn't just good enough anymore. But once again, go back to risk. Is it something that we need to cover off at day one, or are we implementing more controls that make someone's job too hard? And the biggest issue in all of business is finding that real nice fine balance. If you make something too hard for somebody to do their job, they are going to try and find a way around it. And I think it was Steve Jobs that turned around and said, if I want to find the fastest way to get something done, I'm going to hire somebody who's slack, because they're going to find all the shortcuts. They're going to find the quickest and easiest way to get their job done because they're slack. And it's the same in cyber. If you make someone's job hard, they're going to try and punch all the holes through it to get their job done as easy as they can. Hey, it's human nature. I get it. I understand it. But that's why in a lot of discussions, and it's cool that you brought up the staff component, is because if you want to find a way of somebody getting into the organization, look at your staff, because if you're making their job too hard, they're going to be able to tell you how to get around your controls. But we really need to stop this. It's the dumbest thing in the chain. It's the staff. That's rubbish. If your staff are the let's call it the easy target, it means you haven't done your job as an organization to train them. Exactly what you said. You haven't given them the information or the capability for them to identify something going wrong and report it through. And you just need to do that.
Agreed. Going back to the personal one you mentioned before, if we had followed this methodology from your Nonna's methodology, hey, I got a new TV. Yeah. Can you come and set it up for me, right?
Yeah.
Now, in your head, you're like, plug it in, push the button. Yeah. It does it. But the benefits is you get fed, brilliant, payment. The risks, if you don't go, is a slap across the back of the head, not just from your grandparents, but them complaining to your parents. So it was a double whammy. There's your 2FA methodology there.
That's the check.
So, maybe that's the methodology we should go back from. But
oh, mate, it's a different world these days. You can't even say the wrong thing and then somebody gets upset, and then it's the end of the world. It's
look, you go to the footy, right? I mean, I can, before I dig into that one behind you, like I went to the footy and I pulled out, I think it was whatever it was, $8 for a record.
Yeah.
He wouldn't take it. He's like, sorry, sir, you have to pay via. I'm like, slip it in your pocket, give it to me. Yeah. I'll give you $10. See you later. It's just for my, first time I'm taking one of my kids to the footy. I can't take it. It's like, mate, cash is king. What's going on? And that's I don't know what the risk that they've put into place for that, but that's definitely something interesting that I've observed over time. But yeah, looking at that jumper behind you, sir, are definitely a big Adelaide booster. There is no two ways about it. For anyone who knows Matt, he definitely pushes it. You've said it's an amazing city and that you're just 45 minutes in either direction from the best wine regions in the world, which I agree with. You guys, great wine, big boost for the Barossa Valley in my case. I love the Barossa Valley. But, and that sounds pretty delightful and civilized, yeah? But here in Melbourne, my friend, we reckon the main reason we're the targets when it comes to hacking is because they're desperately trying to steal the recipe for our flat whites. Or maybe they just get confused in our laneways and scan that QR code that I've put up and get to the dodgy link. Do you think that cyber baddies just look at Adelaide, see all the good living and sensible infrastructure and go, nah, too calm. Let's stir up those fancy folks in Melbourne who are probably using password 123 for their artisan cheese subscriptions?
Yeah. Oh, look. Look, I don't think that there's much of a difference, right? The main thing really at the end of the day is you just need to look at a little bit more politically what's going on. The reason why Adelaide is probably a little bit more of a target at the moment is the AUKUS keeps coming up. So, that nuclear submarine portfolio. Is that going to hit, the average person? No, not really. These sort of people, they're looking more for, construction. What's going on? What is South Australia building for this program of works? We haven't really been, I suppose, South Australia itself lives in a pretty interesting time. We went from having the Collins class submarines to the AWDs And then now we're moving into the nuclear submarine program as well. So, we've had the larger end of the defense spend, if that's the way you want to put it. But with that becomes a lot of, capability build. So, and sustainment build as well. So how do we, what facilities need to be built? Where are they? One of the most recent ones that was in the news was around, if you remember, there was a couple ships that circumvented around Australia, sort of just, out there, and it was in the news and everything else. I mean, people need to sort of sit there and go, well, why? Because they can? Or what was that for? My personal opinion on that is, well, we're going to have these submarines. People want to know, or our adversaries want to know where they're going to go, which ways are they going to, leave port, which channels are they go, how far down can they go, and how. I mean, you have to remember, a submarine is most vulnerable when it's up, okay, when it's on top of the water. Well, not on top of the water, but, floating up on the water, breached. And, our adversaries want to know, well, they want it all mapped out. So where are these things going to go? Where are they going to leave port? Which way are they going to disappear? The other side of it is, we are backing, a safe Pacific. You're right. We are looking for a safe South China Sea. That is against the agenda of China at the moment. So, could it be that they're sort of saying, well, hey, you are in touch of our fleet. We're just everyday citizens, and you and I, and we're never ever going to find out what the exact reason is, but there's a lot of speculation. And to be bluntly honest, from my perspective, I think it's more of a, hey, Australia, you're not that little island away from everybody anymore. And if you remember, and I'm sure you'll be the same as me, when we saw 9/11 happen, I sort of sat there going, well, I'm happy I'm in Adelaide. Who cares about us? I'll just sit here drinking some wine and, looking at what the hell's going to go on with the rest of the world. And I remember the discussion with Dad at the time was, Dad was like, oh, this is going to be huge. We're going to the holiday house, pack up, we're going. And I was like, all right, well, whatever. But, I suppose cyber is now getting to that kinetic part where cyber is able to touch our lives, that a lot more people are watching the movies, seeing the exaggerated stuff in the movies and going, you know what? There's a lot about this cyber stuff, and now I'm starting to understand and put together what I see in the movies, what's in the media, and what people are telling me. Maybe what people are saying is true and can actually happen. And I think that's a good discussion point.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's finally, I'm going to say, Matt, after nearly, again, 2 decades in the industry, not just for businesses, but for intelligent leaders, international governments, what's your personal drive now? Like, when you think about the legacy you want to build with OpSys and your work in this space, what impact do you hope to have made?
Well, look, it's really interesting. I always get told I'm a very polarizing character. People either love me or hate me. And to be honest, I don't really care. I know that sounds really bad, but I just don't, right? The core of, I suppose, what I want to be, or, when the lights go out and, the credits are showing on my life, I just want to be that person that has called a spade, and I've just said it as it is. I'm not out there for fame. I don't care. I don't need to make billions of dollars. I want to make sure that my staff are looked after. I want to make sure that I create a really cool cyber, let's call it, community, to the point where, as a community, we're working towards a betterment of cyber, right? What I don't like is bullshit marketing, saying things that aren't necessarily true. I don't like the, people trying to con small business. I think that we need to get better as a cyber community to sit there and say, you know what, we will call this out. We will stand together and say, no, this is not right, and this is what needs to be done. And I think throughout my journey, I've had a lot of people sit there and say, this idiot, blah, 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 blah. But a lot of the things that I've actually come out and said and talked about have actually occurred and come to fruition, I suppose. And that's what scares me a little bit. Is I'm not saying that I'm like that future sayer or anything else like that, but I suppose where I really want to be at the end of the day is I want to make sure that OpSys does what we said and what we started up. And when I started OpSys, it was about bringing capability to the small business. It doesn't matter if you're 100 staff, 50 staff, 10 staff, 1. Your mum and dad working from a garage, creating a part on the F-35 project, you still deserve the same cybersecurity as a 500-seat organization. And you deserve to be told the right thing. You don't deserve to be led down the garden path by an IT person masquerading as a cybersecurity expert, saying all the things that they've just Google researched and then implemented that and found yourself in a lot of trouble. And this is at its core what I really stand for. Is I don't care. Like, you could be delivering $100 million worth of cyber capability out, but if you're doing it under the guise of some shady, smoke and mirrors is what I like to call it, then you need to be called on it. You need to be shown that, hey, that's not cool, and that's not what we do as a community. I mean, I've had a look on LinkedIn last night. I was actually really disappointed that, there was somebody that spent all this time building some stuff for B-sides, and they've been sort of called out and called things and said things about, publicly, and all they were trying to do was do something for the betterment of cyber, and I see that in myself as well. I mean, people have called me out on things and said that I say things, but from my heart, it's, well, no, we need to get better as a community and as a cyber leader. The things we say get implemented, and as a leader, the things that you actually say, even if it affects one small business, and that one small business acts on what you're saying and what you're, let's call it preaching, for instance, and then they get breached because of bad advice. I just think that that's really bad, and I don't like that. And that's why when we work with companies that have been breached, we try to find out what was done, what was said, get the communications, and if it's really, really bad, we try to mop it up and fix it as best as we can. And to that degree, we do fix up a lot of people's mistakes in the, let's say, people trying to get into the cyber or play as that cyber expert. And it's heartbreaking to see, because we only see these people as they walk in the door when their business is completely folded up because they've received some really bad cyber advice, and we're there to fix it, to help them. And, from my perspective, I feel sometimes I have to play more of a psychologist than a cyber, and I don't even call myself an expert in cyber. I know what I look at as full cyber experts like Shanna and the team around me, but we need to make sure that as a community that we are putting out the right thing, and that you're doing it for the right reason, not because cyber is a platinum word, and with cyber you can add a 0 on to things. I mean, if you look at our rates that OpSys started with, costs have gone through the roof, as you know, over the last 2 years. OpSys has not put a single dollar on any of our capabilities since 2016. Not one, right? That's what, we are trying to do, is we're trying to say we are true to our word. This is what we do, and this is why we do it. And I think if every cyber person in Australia could actually put their hand on their heart and say that we've done this, I think we'd be in a really cool place. But the world as we know it doesn't work that way, mate. So I'd rather be the larrikin, the joker, call people out and just hope that I make a change. If I don't, well, I don't. And if people hate me for speaking my truth and what it is and calling people out on their silly antics, well, mate, I've got enough friends. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make Australia a safer and more secure place to do business. And if I'm doing that, then I can walk away, happy, joyful, and, look back at the time that I've had and be very, very pleased with what I've done.
Matt, I want to say thank you. I think recently I was listening to a podcast and there was something that this is used by the US, their Top Gun school, Simon Sinek Apple. I think you stand true to this, which is to build, to teach, and to lead. And when I look at OpSys, when I look at how you operate, as a business, and you are definitely true to your word. I can vouch for that from everything I've seen, talking to you, working with you, and even hearing your team giggling, saying, yeah, don't go to that guy. He's literally got the least amount of privileges. He's lucky we let him sign into his email half the time. And you do call a spade a spade. And I think in where we are in the world with how everything is these days, you have to be. You have to be the honest. And yes, people are going to say what they say. But as you said, and a very close friend of mine says all the time, I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to lead, to teach, and to do the right thing by people. And if I can put my head down at night and know hand on heart I've done the right thing, then I don't care what anyone says. And you definitely stand for that. Thank you very much for your time. And I look forward to many more podcasts with you. Thanks, mate.
No worries, buddy. And yeah, I'm, more than happy to always have a bit of a chat with you. I always have a giggle every time you give me a call. So no issues at all, bud.
Thank you.
See you, matey.